Welcome to the Underdog Sniper Podcast. I'm your host, MGCovers. This is episode 68. Greatly appreciate everybody tuning in. We have a very good podcast. Super excited about getting through this with you. A ton of stuff to cover. Give you a brief outline. We're going to talk about some Major League Baseball totals. Made some changes. If you're a client, you know that we came up with a way to handicap sides. I'll show you the back test for it. It was profitable. Have been super infatuated with ChatGPT and how it relates to modeling and sports betting. I'll show you an example from that because I think that's really going to have a huge impact on people that model, people that originate. We're going to look at soccer. Model has been extremely successful, and we'll finish up the podcast talking about a very polarizing figure in the sports betting space that is down right now 54 units year to date, and also talk about a couple losing seasons that I've had in this industry and what happened and where I think this person might be making a mistake. So let's dive into it. We'll start with totals. Before we do that, I posted this on Instagram. The weather here in the Dominican has been absolutely phenomenal since I got back from vacation. I got back a week ago Wednesday. I played golf 12 days straight, and it actually rained on me yesterday. I generally get there to the golf course 3, 4 o'clock, wait, and then, a little bit earlier than that, and I try to tee off between 3 and 4. We had a torrential downpour, a little like one of those storms that was going to stay for a while, but it didn't. It passed over in like 30 minutes. Was able to tee off and get 9 in. So now I've played golf for 12 days straight. And today's perfect, but that doesn't mean anything. Beautiful weather right now. So hopefully we can make it 13 days straight. And I'm just going to see how long I can keep the streak alive, but it's been a lot of fun. Golf game's looking good. I got the handicap down to a 3, but a couple tough rounds here lately. Now I think it's up to 3.6. So still believe, as crazy as it sounds, I can eventually get to scratch at some point. A game that you can play for the rest of your life. All right, so let's dive into Major League Baseball totals. We'll pull this up. Had a really good day with totals yesterday. It had a sweep. I think that's the first time it's ever had a sweep. And again, this is going to be something that's not, it's not going to be high volume. I can't remember exactly when we started wagering this, but I only tested it back tested it from 624, which was when we changed the model, all the way up until 627. So a little over a month, it's only had 60 plays, but cashing at a high percentage. And I've said that if you're going to dive into totals, it will need to cash at a relatively high percentage. If you're playing, I track this using minus 110 odds so you could see the accuracy of it. Obviously, sometimes we have to pay a little bit more, and occasionally we played a little bit less. There was a line that went from 8 down to 7.5. And obviously we were on, no, that was the other way. I think it went from 7.5 up to 8. I can't remember the line, what it was, but I remember us paying, we actually had like plus 105, which is rare to get dog money on a totals line. But nonetheless, the model, if you're going to play totals, has to be sharp. This has been 35 and 25, now back up to 7.5 units, say win percentage of 50%. And notice that the total line has come down. This is the average totals line that we played is 7.96. It does feel like that the market's adjusting, and I'm probably sabotaging myself to some degree with the podcast. Again, I'm not a huge content person where a lot of people listen, but if you're sharp and you understand this business and how to look at numbers, unders are cashing. And I do feel like not only the market's adjusting, but it feels like the books are adjusting as well. These lines we played this last week, where is it? So there was a 6, which we're not going to play any more 6s or 6.5s. So here's a 7, 7, 8, 7, 8.5, 8.5, 8, 8.5, 8.5, 7.5, 7.5. So not too bad. But I do feel like that might be the trend. And it could potentially get to a point to where if these unders continue to cash, books continuing to adjust as well. But for now, we're going to play it as is. This is our F5 line you're looking at here. That average has gone down to 3.2. So anytime we have both F5 lines under 3.9 or less, then that would be a play on the under, contingent that the line is 7 or greater, because obviously would play a 6.5. So pretty excited about that. Now we'll shift gears here. I made a coaching video about this with clients, and this is a pretty sharp approach. I was proud that I found this. So what I did was I went back and, again, primarily based on pitching stats, where what we want to do is we want to play when we have, it's almost opposite of what happened in the last 2 years, meaning pitching is very important. Good pitching does beat good hitting now in Major League Baseball. It was not true the previous 2 years based on my model and how I capped. And I think I was reading some on Twitter. There was another handicapper. He'd lost like 60 units just with Major League Baseball. So baseball is a sport that can get out of hand quick. Again, it's simple when you look at it from the macro. There's 3 parts: starting pitching, hitting, and relief pitching. But how you factor those 3 and how you handicap those 3 can make a huge difference, whether you win or lose. And obviously, we were ahead of it the last couple of years. It got us the first part of the season. We used the same model that was successful the past 2 seasons. And now it feels like it's almost reversed, to where we're almost doing opposite of what we did. We're focused more on pitching than hitting. And so what we do with this particular model for sides is we're only going to play when a team has a F5 line or 3.2 or less, and the opposing team's F5 line is 4.0 or higher. And I just tracked this I kind of took a page out of Eric's playbook with UFC, which means I didn't play run lines. I just wanted to see what it would be if we just played this straight up. So you can see lines at here like 240. So back testing it from 727 all the way. And we've played this the last 3 days. It is 43 and 25, up 9.36 units, 102.99 units risk. Again, this is the back test. We've wagered the last 4 days via the model with a 9% ROI. And what I did over here on the right, I think this is very good. Those of you who want to build models, want to get better, you always want to look at, is there a better way, a more profitable way to do this? And so what I thought was, well, here's what's happening. When you see, look at this line here, minus 233, minus 230, minus 215. That means we have a good starting pitcher. Everybody knows that, pitching on a good team, probably playing against a, quote, bad team. You can see here, these all won. Minus 233 win, minus 230 win, minus 215 win, minus 180 win. So what I thought was, well, what about if we play dogs? Because if you have a good starting pitcher via the model and they're an underdog, that means that they're probably playing against a, quote, good team, and that good starting pitcher on maybe an average or below average team is extremely undervalued. Now, it wasn't a lot of plays. You can see here, we'll scroll back up here to the top. Yeah, I think we had this play for free Fridays. This Miami game here. Let me pull this up. Oh, this was up here. My bad. I realized I did it. So on Friday, we had Miami as a free play. 3.2 was their F5 line. Look at that. Plus 195. That was a win. And so what I did over here on the right was I just said, all right, I'm just going to track this model just playing dogs. So in that same scenario, we got an F5 line of 3.2. Opponent has one at 4.0 or higher. We will play and we're getting plus money. We track that. Now, again, it wasn't a big sample size. Instead of, what was that, roughly 43 and 25, that is 68 games. We only had 13 games, but check out the units. Went 10 and 3, 10.51 units for a whopping 81% ROI. If you don't know how to calculate ROI, you just take the total amount of units that you risk. In this case, would be a total of 13 plays. Since they're all dogs, we know we've risked a total of 13 units. The yield is 10.51 units for an ROI of 81%. You take 10.51 divided by that 13. So even though I started wagering it and laying the juice, I think my strategy here for baseball for the next couple of days into the month of August, I think I'm going to play just money line dogs and stick with totals. Not 100% sure on that, but I kind of like doing it that way. And then you look at something else too here. If you're curious, I would probably say, I haven't tracked this playing the money lines, but I got a feeling it would probably be more profitable that way. Meaning like we did it one of these games in here. You have Seattle yesterday. Instead of laying minus 171, we played that on the money line. In fact, I might do that later today. Go back and track this on the money line. And as you know, in any sport, when a team wins, majority of time they cover. So it's probably advantageous to play these on the money line because that was significantly reduce the juice. And, look at some of these wins, minus 205, minus 120, minus 175. Obviously, the win percentage will decrease, but because you're laying less juice, in a lot of cases, if you're playing the run line in baseball, you're getting dog money. So it probably will be profitable playing these on the run line. So if I do it this way, I'm going to definitely play some of these heavier juice teams on the run line. But if it's like a line like minus 130, probably just play it straight lane, the minus 130, and probably will adapt that old strategy I had back in the day. I would play money line up to minus 150, higher than minus 150. I would play it on the run line. And if you're new, listen to the podcast or the way that I handicap, the way that I think the best way to do this business is you have to take all the subjectivity out of it. So if you don't have a plan, you don't have a process, when you're ready to make a wager, you're going to put all this doubt in your head because you don't have an actual system of how you're actually handicapping, and that will often lead to bad decisions. So what I'm saying is you might run the model and you have a scenario where you have 3 plays and they're all one's minus 240, minus 220, minus 250. And you're like, what should I do here? What should I do? And you end up, maybe the play that you play on the run line, they lose by 1. Say you play 2 of them on the run line, they lose by 1. They win by 1, so you lose both those. And the one that was, say, minus 250, it loses outright. So it's very important, whatever you do and however you handicap, is to have a process and don't guess at it, and make sure that it's been tested so that you are, playing the best possible play and structuring your wagers in the best possible way to be profitable. All right, so let's dive over and we'll talk about some ChatGPT. If you follow me on Instagram, I would encourage, or if you don't, I would encourage you to follow me on Instagram. It's MGCovers, covers spelled with the Z. There's a link to do that in the description of this video. Super fascinated with ChatGPT. And I will tell you this, and I did upgrade to the paid version. So when I'm telling you this, the paid version is very inexpensive, $20 a month. And there's some other AI websites very similar to ChatGPT that I'm going to try to explore and do this and see if it might be better. But in essence, how I think it's going to change. Again, I don't think you can tell ChatGPT, hey, handicap these games, build me a model. It requires a lot of very specific prompt questions, meaning you have to guide it. It will be extremely productive in what it produces, but you have to be very specific about what you're telling it to do. Now, this took almost all day yesterday, but what's interesting about this, what you're looking at, is I told ChatGPT what stats I was using for the WNBA model. And of course, I could have tracked this manually and kept up with it, took a screenshot of all the power rankings each day. But then I went back and said, okay, these are the stats I'm using. I want you to go back and build a database of my power rankings using, I gave it a specific number of games to use so that, say, for example, in this right here, 616, these are the stats using the specific number of games that I asked it to, ranking those teams via my model from 1 through 13. And then we highlighted the top 3, and then 11, 12, 13, we put them in red, highlight them in red. And basically the model, what I was going to test was, and this reason I knew to do it this way, I kind of watched WNBA. The way I calculated the lines was not working at all in WNBA season. So I said, hey, I'm just going to use what I call the margin concept. And this is something that Billy Walters did to some degree. A lot of people might label it a little bit differently, but he would label like, hey, if it's, you want the biggest margin possible. And when he had 2 teams via his model that were significant margin, he would label that a 5-star play. If, they had the bare minimum margin enough to signify a play, he would label it a 3-star play. So what I did here, this is just something to make it simple. I call this the margin concept. So we only want to play the top 3 teams against 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then if any other team is playing against the 11th, 12th, and 13th team, that would be a play as well. So what's fascinating, ChatGPT did all this. In fact, I just, over here on the left, these 3 columns, I just copied and pasted this from ChatGPT. Now, it took all day for it to do it. And I think if when I use this the next week and pretty much the rest of my career, I'm sure I'll learn how to do this a lot more efficient in what I ask it to do. But again, it's pretty scary, very scary to think the possibility of what this could do, because a lot of times in the past I would have, my forte is models. and I'm very creative. That's my forte. There's probably a ton of people listening to this podcast are way better at me at Google Sheets, calculating things. I'm really good with numbers, but then actually applying that inside Google Sheets. Maybe some of you are familiar with Python, running scripts. Not really my forte, but with ChatGPT, it has the ability to do something like that. So just think about that for a second. You could say, hey, build me a model using this stat. I want to track, here's my criteria. We're only going to play, and this is the criteria we had. I could have had it test this, but I manually back tested this. I'll show you what I did. So I said, all right, we're going to play, the top three teams for as long as the line is -9.5 or less. When the line is +6 or less, we'll play that on the money line. We already know that from what we discovered with NCAA basketball and NBA. When a team wins, the majority of the time, if that line is -9.5 or less, or 9.5 or less, the spread is that team's going to win outright. So it's advantageous to play that on the money line. You're going to be super fascinated by these results. So, of course, you can put that criteria into ChatGPT. It might take some tweaking, but the point is, if you want to learn modeling and you want to get better in this business, you're going to have to start using ChatGPT, because it's basically like having a full-time employee for $20 a month. And I've got it running another script for another sport as we speak. So I want to look at these results now. This shows wins, losses over here. And the reason you see like Golden State here, this means they were probably playing one of these teams in red. So these are the units, and this is the wins, and this is the losses. And I want to show you this. And what I want you to focus on, look at the dogs that it's cashing. And I think WNBA is what we would call a soft market, meaning the lines are not sharp or mature as a sport like NFL. When you get to NFL Sunday, those lines are pretty sharp. They may move a half a point here and there, but because of all the money that's went into that market, it's a very, many sharps would say, very difficult market to beat late, even though I'm somebody that plays late. But the point is, I think WNBA, you can definitely exploit it. You'll hear a lot of sharps talking about it. It's a great sport to wager on. All right, so check this out. A plus 315 dog cash, a plus 345 dog cash, plus 215, plus 351. And when you see minus 1.1, that means we're playing I just calculated it using minus 110 odds. I think that if you're tracking something, I think it's important to use minus 110 odds, because if the model that you're back testing or tracking can be profitable on a spread line and you're using minus 110 odds, that's, you're good to go. All right, look at this one. Plus 474. So Dallas was the second best team via our power rankings on July 2nd. They cashed as plus 474 dogs. Look, Indiana cashed at plus 174. So, of course, when we notate it in the tracker, it's going to be plus 1.74 units. Here's another one. LA plus 207, Seattle plus 187. And you can see how I guess off these lines are. On 7-5, we had LA Sparks, I think that's their nickname, as the third best team in WNBA for that day, but they were plus 207 dogs, and they weren't playing another team in the top three. And you look at Seattle on 7-6, they were plus 187, and they were the second best team via my power ranking. So you have to have obviously have to have a sharp model. And we'll scroll. Let me go ahead and get to the bottom and show you the results. Okay, it had a losing record at 20-23, so that's about 46%. However, it cashed the entire model 10.59 units, and that was through yesterday. And what's interesting, of those 20 wins, 9 of those were money line dogs. And I've often said, if you can find a sport where you're playing that's, and create a model in a sport where money line dogs cash, whether it's Major League Baseball, NHL, or even WNBA, a little bit harder in NBA because dogs only went outright about 30% of the time, a little bit more difficult in NBA. But WNBA soft market, something you can definitely exploit. So this has already got me excited for next year. And so now when I list the power rankings, that's how I'm going to list it. We're going to look at the top. I don't even know how many games are left in WNBA season. So we'll play the top 3. You can see it from yesterday. Phoenix and Indiana went 1-1. And then we'll play against teams 11, 12, and 13. But again, ChatGPT, super, super fascinating. All right, let's dive over into soccer. and I want to show you something and talk about a mistake I made with soccer. All right, as you know, I'll give you the brief backstory if you're new, but soccer's been something I have handicapped since 2019, 6 years. I had a profitable year 1 year, or maybe 2 years, but it was like small, like $3,000 1 year, maybe 1,700 the other year. And then, of course, I've gotten crushed and soccer was down. That's what caused, I've had 2 losing seasons. I thought I had soccer figured out, and we ended up wagering draws, lost about 27 grand. And that led obviously to a losing season. Huge mistake there. And I'm going to talk about that at the end of the podcast. But this is something that I've tried to, I guess, conquer. You never conquer sports betting, but this model has done extremely well. I already have clients playing it now. And I want to show you, talk about some mistakes I made with this. So on 425, I had already, this was me tracking it daily, meaning this is not a back test. This is me actually tracking this model live. And what I mean by tracking a model live, you're basically doing ghost wagers. You're going to run the model. All right, this particular team for Netherlands was a play. This was a win, and we track it. So that's what I mean by tracking it live. So I'd already done the back test prior. So from 425 all the way up through 727, this model is now 51 and 48, up 17 units, 17.45 units. It's on a 7.3 run. We've risked a total of 100, haven't risked, but the tracking the model, 116 units total risk. Profit of 17.45 gives us an ROI of 15% for the model. And if you look over here on the right, this is MLS and Brazil Series A only, basically the summer leagues, 30 and 32, up 12.74 units. If I would tell you how I created this, I've tried everything in soccer. And then when I went to this model, I felt good about it, but it's such an unorthodox approach. I think that's probably why I've been reluctant to actually wager real dollars on this. But to give you an example, I remember looking at this coming into the month of June. I thought, okay, it had just come off a little losing skid there coming into June. And I remember on June 1st saying, hey, I should probably start wagering on June 1st. From June 1st all the way to the end of the month, this has been did I do it right? Yeah. 10.46 units. So this model has been extremely profitable in the month of June, and I'm man enough to admit that was a mistake. And again, having a process for how you do things is very important. And that's why I mentioned how I created this model. I've already back tested this. I've already ran a back test. I've live wagered. I've tracked this manually live every single day, ran the model. Here's, this is what the model's saying are plays, and there's nothing else to do here. In fact, now I'm probably need to wait for this model to progress. It's on the 7-3 run. If you know about regression, the next 10 wagers are not going to go 7-3. So as soon as this model regresses, I will start wagering soccer live. But a mistake made, because I remember consciously looking at this thing at June 1st. I already knew it was profitable. I had run the back test. I had done everything that I needed to do. It's time to pull the trigger. And even if I'd have wagered, small 1/5 unit, 1/3 units, or even, hell, $100 a play, that'd have been better than doing nothing. So as long as you go through those steps and feel good about it, you've got evidence that the model works. The only thing left to do is pull the trigger. And sometimes that's very difficult to do and something I've struggled with throughout my career. But this model, I'm like super, super excited about it. Obviously, we have to show evidence that it's profitable using real dollars. That's always, even though we're not going to do anything different, but super excited about that. We still have majority of I don't know how much is left in MLS season. I know it runs at least a couple more months. Same deal with Brazil Series A. We may even add in Brazil Series B, depending on if I can get money down on that league. I think I can. And then, of course, in the fall, we'll have all the major sports. It will take them a while before they have sufficient data, but I think probably end of October, we'll be able to wager, all the big leagues, English Premier League, Bundesliga, EPL, et cetera. So really, really, really super excited about the progress we've made with soccer. And just a quick plug for the business. If you want access, you get access to these power rankings every single day. The Major League Baseball model, you get access to the entire model, meaning what stats I use, how I calculate it. We have a 7-episode series. I'll show you the exact stats we're using, how we're incorporating starting pitching, which we didn't before. So you get access to all that. It's $50 a month. Very inexpensive to join. If you want access to that in addition to all my personal plays, $100 a month. And both of those package, you get access to all of our coaching videos on the site, about 150 something coaching videos on the website, teach you how to get better at sports betting. Then joining for the year is the best value. Instead of paying $100 a month, you pay $4.99 one time. Link to join in the description. And we'll wrap this up podcast talking about a popular figure. And again, I don't want to throw shade on him because, again, and maybe I should say that before I dive into this, it's a very difficult business. I've had 2 losing seasons. One was the first year I took on clients and just was very unorganized. The pressure I felt from that really made it difficult for me. I'm not making an excuse. It was just, we just had a losing season. We're down, I think, 12 units. And then, of course, the year we decided to wager soccer draws. It was basically a disaster. I think we finished up in the hole about, a little bit under 30 units. I think it was like 28, 29 units in the hole. So it's very easy. Interesting part about sports betting is that there's no floor and there is no ceiling in this business. You can lose a lot of money. You can make a lot of money. Now, the person we're going to talk about is Steve Fezzik. He is a polarizing figure in social media, very popular. He's has won several contests. I remember I tracked him last year, and the source that showed how many units he made, I felt was profitable, and he later confirmed that. He was up 19 units last year, so nothing wrong with that. That's profitable. It's very difficult to be profitable. Only, my opinion, probably 5% of the people that wager on sports are profitable. A lot of people will say it's less. I think that's a more accurate number. But currently, he is down minus 54 units year to date. So he's going to have a losing season. It's, July 28th. There's no way to bounce back from that. But the point I want to make in this is that you just don't wake up one day and you're in the whole 54 units, which means, he had to have been down 10 units, then down 20 units, then down 30 units, then down 40 units, and now you end up here at 54. So at some point, you have to immediately recognize what you're doing is wrong and correct it. So obviously, you can stop wagering, and maybe because he's like myself, he offers his plays to the public for purchase, and maybe he felt pressure to keep going. I'm not sure what it is, but when you're in the hole minus 54 units and it's July 28th, you've made a lot of mistakes. The way that you're handicapping definitely needs to be evaluated, and you need to make some changes for sure. So hopefully he can get it turned around. But again, once you're, 54 units in the hole, there's no coming back from that. I mean, he's going to have a losing season. And making a point to the mistake I made with Major League Baseball, we had 200 games and we weren't profitable. So the model, the way I'd capped the previous 2 years, had 200 games, wasn't profitable. I should have stopped it way before. I may have mentioned this on the previous podcast, meaning after 100 games, we had a 100-game sample, and I looked at this and said, hey, we're not making any money with the baseball model the way it is. Got to make some changes. So mistake I made was I should have made it sooner. But I think what makes it difficult probably for him, and I know this was the case with me, especially if you're a winning sports bettor, and again, there's not a lot of people that can do that. He probably thought mentally, it got in his head, like, hey, I can overcome this. What I've done in the past is working. I'm just going to keep doing that and think that it's going to work. But I feel like there's so many people putting money down on these games. The market feels like it's a lot sharper. We've all talked about this, difficult to make money in this business. Several handicappers tweeted out this week that, top down might be something that's dissolved in the future, meaning wagering just using line movement. It might not be a profitable way to go in the future where, I posted about the podcast. I think the old sports director for, I think it was Circa, he talked about line movement, completely blew me away. If you're interested in that podcast, give it a listen because he talked about some very unorthodox ways books are moving lines. They're moving lines when there's not even money coming in on that game just to create buzz, to get more action. So all the sports books now know what line movement means. I mean, if they move it in a certain direction, how the general public is going to respond to that. Obviously, they still have to move the line to increase or decrease their liability, but nonetheless, this business is difficult. And I think the takeaway from this is that if you're losing, you need to acknowledge that and then to make a change. If what you're doing is working, don't change anything, keep plowing. Again, a mistake I made with soccer, that model, I had back tested it. It was profitable. I ran the live test. We've tracked it now. Almost 100 wagers. It's profitable now, up 17 units. It was profitable 10 units from 6-1 all the way to this month. Should have been wagering. I wasn't. So, mistake on my part. But I'll close the podcast with this. Very difficult business. The margin of error in this business is huge. You will make mistakes. Recover from it. Keep plowing. Keep learning. Keep trying to improve. Greatly appreciate you guys tuning in to the podcast. Talk to you guys next week. Peace.